consider myself a conscious consumer, and as I've gotten older, I have been intentional in my support of black businesses, just as I support any other business. When you grow up in a place like Atlanta, it's hard not to keep this on your mind. And yet, when I moved here and started to participate in the work of the New Orleans Index, I learned a number of shocking statistics related to black businesses nationwide and here in New Orleans. The one that knocked me out of my seat was that nationally, 21% of all businesses are black owned. Those businesses collectively only received 3% of all receipts. In New Orleans, 27% of all businesses are black owned, higher than the national average. And while difficult to do, we somehow managed to spend only 2% of all receipts with black businesses here, below the already pathetic national average. Now I understand this is a complex situation. In many ways, Dillard is seen as a large black business that needs to engage many smaller businesses. Some are black, many are not. I've had conversations with black entrepreneurs concerned that we should spend more with them. And they understand that I have to get the best deal in the era where everyone complains about the cost of higher education. Sadly, larger national corporations can undercut the price of a small local one, and it probably isn't fair for me to try to create equity by spending more when my population, or the population that I serve, needs the best financial deal possible. But what if everyone at Dillard and everywhere else independently targeted their money? I mean, that's what I do. Within a 10-minute walk from where we are, Doctors Aguilar are our family dentists. Our family eye doctor is about a 5-minute ride or so. I still need to go. I don't have an appointment yet. While I can cut my own hair, the result of being a graduate student in a place called Oxford, Ohio, I usually go to Park Place to get a cut, and Benjamin does better with them cutting his hair than me. Wilson's handles all my shoe repairs. For over a decade, I have taken freshman students off campus for lunch, and probably 80% of the time we support a black restaurant, partly to expose these students to the establishments that I hope they will return to. My two mainstays are the historic Dookie Chase, which I actually was there today and was recently cited as the place having the best fried chicken in the city, and Lil Dizzy's, the place that I really think has the best fried chicken in the city. That's my spot. And you got to add Neo's over there too, because that's another one of my spots. What would happen then if we all intentionally spent in our community? What if we ensured that some of our income would stay here? Can you imagine the possibilities? I know I can as an HBCU president. Prior to Brown versus Board, we educated 90% of blacks. Today, it's less than 10% and falling. Too many of y'all feel the ice is cold at some of these other places. SLU, ULL, you know, the you-know-who schools, even though their graduation rates are much less than ours for black students. And they'll never host a Black Male Summit like we did yesterday, unless it's a tryout to test their times in the 40 or how high they can jump. Oh yes, tonight is real talk and a wake-up call about supporting our community. And we have a guest brain food chef who wrote the recipe for supporting our community. Maggie Anderson and her family made history and dominated headlines as national media covered their real-life case study in self-help economics in the black community. The Anderson family lived exclusively off black businesses and talent and brought only black-made products for an entire year. It was called the Empowerment Experiment and resulted in a landmark study conducted by Northwestern's Kellogg School of Business. Since the completion of their experiment, Anderson has become the voice of African American consumers of all backgrounds who want to make sure their buying power positively impacts struggling minority communities. A sought-after speaker, Anderson has appeared on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, C-SPAN, PBS NewsHour, and CBS Morning News, among many other national television and radio shows. She is the author of the critically acclaimed book, Our Black Year, described by Publishers Weekly as an effective probe into how African Americans spend so much money that overwhelmingly leaves their communities. The Library Journal added, Anderson's book successfully illuminates the roadblocks faced by Black business owners and the racial divide that continues to persist in the U.S. economy. This book will appeal to students of sociology and economics, as well as those looking for inspiration to effect positive change in their communities. Maggie Anderson has a BA in political science from Emory University and earned both her Juris Doctor and MBA from the University of Chicago. She is an accomplished business strategy professional with 17 years of legal research, communications, and business strategy experience, and is a respected leader in the Chicago business community. Previously at McDonald's corporate headquarters, she developed, presented, and implemented influential growth strategies and venture plans in the areas of diversity, emergent industries and global markets, market segmentation, communications, business intelligence, and corporate responsibility. Anderson also has a strong track record with various political and government environments, including serving as the mayor of Atlanta's speechwriter while that city hosted the Olympic Games. Anderson's parents immigrated from Cuba 40 years ago, bringing with them the clothes on their backs and her two older brothers only. The lessons she learned from her parents, messages such as no welfare, no daycare, we'll make it work, as well as her awareness of her diverse ancestry and her resulting belief in the capacity for different races, cultures, and nationalities to harmoniously exist and blend together, have given her valuable insights into remedying her communities and others' problems. Please welcome our guest chef for this evening, Maggie Anderson.
I need you to hear her story. Margarita, would you please come up and share your brilliant and wonderful story? She is from Chi-Town, member of Trinity United Church of Christ. Amen. We're so glad to have you in the house. And so I want her to share with you something just really, really profound, really, really powerful. Go ahead and preach.
Thank you, Pastor.
An African-American couple making a decision that for an entire year, it will only patronize Black-owned businesses.
This is a social initiative and an experiment where we have essentially become guinea pigs to follow, and try to prove out from an empirical perspective, how self-help economics can ultimately help the African-American community.
We want people all over America to be able to buy from Black businesses, and I think that until the Black community takes some ownership and tries to give the Black businesses a chance to even make it and grow, that kind of thing is never going to happen.
Sometimes it seems we'll touch that dream, but things come slow and not at all. They come slow, and the ones on top won't make it stop. So convinced that they might fall.
Hey, honey.
Maggie, a stay-at-home mom, is a business consultant with 2 degrees, an MBA and a law degree from the University of Chicago. John, a financial advisor, holds degrees from Harvard and Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management.
Next year, we are going to only support Black businesses and Black professionals to start really pushing more of our money back into the Black community.
Couple says they want to solve what they call the crisis in the Black community. They want to, as they say, buy Black. The African-American couple from Oak Park travel farther than they need to in order to make purchases from Black-owned businesses.
A growing number of African-Americans have decided to only support Black businesses. We looked at one family's year of buying Black.
Liquor store, funeral home. Liquor store, funeral home. This is what the Black community is. I want to change this.
This is crime-stricken West Chicago, not so far from Barack Obama's Chicago home, where Maggie Anderson is implementing her own plan for change in America, a crusade to resurrect black-owned businesses.
For the past 6 months, my family has been living off of black businesses. For the next 6 months, we're going to do the same thing. This year-long project we call the Empowerment Experiment.
First of all, this is an academic exercise that we're trying to bear out, from a statistical standpoint, how, if more dollars are reinvested in particularly underserved black communities, that we can bridge a lot of the social gaps.
Which is Magic Johnson's whole thing about trying to build more businesses in black communities.
So for some people, it may be a controversial method, but it's definitely a laudable goal.
Good to have you both with us. What got you doing this, guys?
Well, actually, this pledge came out of a conversation that happens in a lot of African-American black middle-class households. We're talking about ways we can give back to our community. And for us, we were just very frustrated with the asymmetry between all of the awesome black talent, all of these wonderful black resources that's approaching now $1 trillion in black buying power, and what's actually reinvested in and represented in our community. So our frustration with that asymmetry, and are just wondering if we just try to support black businesses, maybe we can do something to give back to those underserved communities we care about and come from.
A Chicago couple is conducting an economic experiment. They're trying to make all of their purchases from black-owned businesses. Here's the question, can they do it? Here's another question, should they do it? CNN's Susan Rosegen has details.
You also need some shrimp.
Maggie Anderson better have all the items on her list before she leaves the supermarket. Because if she doesn't, it's a long way back. Anderson has to drive 20 minutes from her home to the only grocery where she'll shop, the one that has a black owner. She'll also drive out of her way to eat at a black-owned restaurant, get clothes cleaned at a black-owned dry cleaners, and keep her money in a black-owned bank.
You know what,
Maggie and her husband John have made a public pledge to try to buy only from black-owned businesses for 1 year. They call it the Empowerment Experiment, empowering black communities by supporting their businesses. Critics call it an experiment in racism.
We're not advocating that anybody make purchases along racial lines. Okay, that's not what we're advocating. What we are advocating, though, is that African Americans do have a higher sense of duty to support black businesses that are investing in the community.
But the goal is the same.
At the end of the day, this is just about people, in the African American community getting their representative share of the American dream.
And I read that you thought that even some people you knew, some others that you didn't know, trying to start businesses, African Americans, they weren't taken seriously or they weren't viable businesses because they couldn't get enough people to go along with them. One reason behind this?
Well, to the extent that that has to do with us, we have to cure that. We do believe that, of course, the crazy failure rates of black businesses and the difficulty it is to get one started may have to do with our history here and lack of access to capital and networks. But to the extent that it has to do with black, predominantly middle-class folks, not supporting those businesses because of stereotypes or just not knowing that they're there, that's a problem.
But sometimes as I live this new life, as I make sure that my money enriches my community, as I defend this concept on CBS News with Katie Couric, as I read the hate mail and wonder whether some lunatic might actually act on his fear of a thriving black community, as I travel leaving my husband and my girls so I can share our journey with our people, as I grow more saddened as I see firsthand the plight of black business and the sight of my people who are struggling just to hold it together, as I have to find a way to explain to my 4-year-old that she's not gonna have a Chuck E. Cheese birthday party, she's gonna have a Kenny Johnson's Little Jim birthday party this year, and why it's gonna be all the better.
We've been able to, find quality black business to meet all of our basic and daily needs.
Bless your heart. Yeah, buy black.
Buy black.
I like that.
I'm excited. Everything is everything.
Are you going to even think about you? But we just can't imagine now not every day doing something to support our community, just in buying groceries, in going to the gas station, in opening a checking account.
So as urban communities and urban development proliferate, then we win as a society.
We spent about $5,000 so far. I hope that other families will start doing what we're doing, and that at the end of the year, we can showcase to the world millions of dollars directly infused into Black communities. People think differently about Black business now. People are talking about economic development in the Black community. People have hope, and we have an example of what we did. Look at these millions of dollars.
You can have a wonderful life, but just try to make little sacrifices to support those businesses that are going to churn out more role models for our kids. Otherwise, things are just going to stay the same.
Is really unashamedly from the soul. So I must, before I even begin, put my heart on a platter for your wonderful president, Dr. Kimbrough, who didn't know me from a bowl of soup 3 months ago, but once he learned of my family's pledge in honor of our heritage and our people and our businesses and our neighborhoods, he determined that my story fell right in line with Dillard's wonderful traditions. So thank you, Mr. President. That's all he knew, that I made a pledge to only support Black businesses for an entire year, to take a stand with my family, with all the world watching, and he said, that's good enough for Dillard. She needs to come to Dillard. That's all he knew, and I suspect that that's mostly all you know about me. So let me take a second to introduce myself. I come from a Cuban family. My parents and big brothers came to the United States, settled in Miami, Florida in 1967, a few years before I was born. My pediatrician was Dr. Marti. My dentist was Dr. Leon. We bought our car from Gus Machado Chevrolet. Our family friend, Theo Carlos, had a construction company and gave my two big brothers their first jobs. My quinceañera was held at Munoz Banquet Hall. Joaquin was my father's best friend. He had his own fix-it shop and was our handyman. He helped us convert our garage into an apartment that we rented out. My godfather was Julio Fojon, and he owned a thriving flower shop, and now his son is the mayor of a small suburb of Miami. Business owners like those and families like mine, we drove the growth of the Cuban community in South Florida and in America. My parents taught me that although we were from Cuba and therefore Hispanic, we should be proud of our being Black too. But in Liberty City, the impoverished, predominantly Black area where we lived, we were not supporting each other like the Cubans did. I can't hardly remember any Black businesses when I was growing up. It was a very sad, very tough place. My mother was mugged 3 times, once right in front of me, and I couldn't wait to leave Liberty City. So I ran away from Liberty City for college at Emory University in Atlanta, served as an aide to civil rights hero Congressman John Lewis, and around the same time, John left Detroit to go to Harvard. Then he went to Chicago to get his MBA at Kellogg. After college, I came to Chicago too to get my MBA and my law degree at the University of Chicago, and I was taught civil rights and constitutional law by then Professor Obama, now the President of the United States of America. So we fell in love while we were both in graduate school. That's John and I, not the President and I. We bought a home in a pricey suburb of Chicago, had 2 beautiful babies, and were living out our awesome American dream story. But I felt like I had to abandon Liberty City to get that dream. So in Liberty City's honor, this all grown-up African, Cuban American conceived of and conducted the empowerment experiment, my family's highly publicized stand to spend all of our money in the Black community for 1 year. Because I wanted to do something in my life as a Black person, as a mother, as a consumer, so that the Black community too can finally become economically relevant, so that my children can have more positive local role models from their experience and heritage like I saw in the Cuban community, like we used to have in the Black community. So here are some highlights from the experiment. We spent or otherwise invested over $94,000 that year with Black-owned businesses that we would not have otherwise. We were disappointed by the number of markets and industries where we suffer from a complete lack of representation. We went without. We were absolutely, totally deprived of the quality of life with which we had grown accustomed. I made my daughters eat gas station food like bologna and overpriced, overprocessed cereal and chili cheese Fritos for dinner. Well, it's not like I really needed that much of an excuse to eat chili cheese Fritos, but still, if you're forced to eat it, it's not the same. We had to eat that for dinner because the one black-owned grocery store we could find closed 5 months before we finished our experiment. We never found a black-owned drugstore. The one gas station was over 40 miles away. Poor Corey was sleeping in her crib way past the time she had outgrown it. My children were going to school crying because their shoes were too tight and coming home crying because they were teased. Going into that year, I assumed that since there were so many furniture outlets and grocery stores and drugstores and dollar stores and gas stations and clothing stores in the black community in Chicago, the second largest black population in the United States, that maybe some of them, should be most of them, will be owned by the African American people who live there. Not the case. That was tough. That was really tough. But it wasn't so tough just because of what my family endured. My heart ached seeing up close what our black people, our people have to go through in these retail and food deserts, can't find a fresh piece of fish or a banana, fresh bread, forced to settle for high-priced, inferior goods and services delivered through steel bars and from under bulletproof glass, and enduring disrespect from shop owners who don't live in the community, don't hire from the community, but use the starving community's money to send their kids to college. It was real painful to see that. Just as painful to see my quality entrepreneurs who do everything right, work hard, and can't get their own people to lift them up. It was hurtful and fearful being called a racist, a Nazi, the other N-word, dealing with threats and hate mail just because I decided to use my buying power to support my economically depleted and exploited community for a year. It was humiliating taking CBS News and PBS NewsHour through the black areas of Chicago, trudging through that economic deprivation and that social decay. Every face we see, everywhere black, and watching them, the white correspondents and camera crews, shake their heads as we went door to door, business by business. Hi, we're doing a story on black businesses. May we meet your owner? And go on blocks and blocks before encountering a black proprietor. I didn't want to put the economic demise of my community on front pages across the country. It hurt as a black woman to see it, and I know I hurt feelings to show it. But I really hoped that the media would bring you in, all of America in, and take us all there. And you would see things that you may not want to see, but you needed to see and actually wanted to understand. In different Asian American communities, the dollar circulates among that community's banks and retailers and professionals for about 28 days before it's spent with outsiders. The Jewish community, they recycled their dollar with their own professionals and firms for 19 to 21 days. In WASP communities, for lack of a better term, predominantly white places, like our ethnic Europeans and like our Italian folks, Greek folks, the dollar is spent with their own for anywhere between 11 and 17 days. Same number for Middle Easterners, descendants of Arab nations. Hispanics, they keep their dollar for 7 days, a whole week. In the black community, our community that we celebrate and build up every day, our dollar lives for 6 hours. Now everyone knows that's true. Don't act all shocked. We know it, but we try not to see it. Everyone also knows that it wasn't like that before. After emancipation, you all know that the black community had amassed great business power. Cities like Tulsa and Durham, North Carolina are the most documented examples. These cities came to be called Black Wall Streets. We built schools like Dillard, banks like Liberty, insurance companies, grocery stores, hotel chains, drugstore chains, hardware stores, daycares, hospital systems, construction firms, steel mills, farming regions, all kinds of shops and professionals thrived, all black-owned. Hundreds of millions were created and reinvested. They supported the businesses and realized major economic and political power, intergenerational wealth, intergenerational entrepreneurship, intergenerational financial prosperity. The prosperity and the businesses enabled the creation of African American educational, civic, and professional and rights organizations, funded the civil rights movement. The dollar would stay in the community for 1 to 3 years, 6 hours now. Unemployment was at the same level as that of whites, and sometimes lower than that of whites between 1880 and 1940. The unemployment gap that we've become so accustomed to only began to grow after 1960. So it became clear Just like it was for our Jewish friends as they struggled here to make it here on their own, African Americans too would be able to do whatever they want, our communities could prosper, and we could represent true social equality finally if we focused on our economic, not just our political empowerment, our economic rights, not just our civil rights. Booker T knew that, Dr. King knew that, those who opposed them knew that. Here's another Black history fact, since I'm supposed to be lecturing to you tonight. Over 90% of the lynchings of blacks that happened during Reconstruction and Jim Crow were of business owners. Economic terrorism. Our people, our elders and ancestors watched as their vibrant communities, their homes and thriving economic thoroughfares in Tulsa, Oklahoma, got bombed, then torched, then looted, because business owners and consumers alike had to be denied violently and unambiguously the privilege, the right of entrepreneurship, of prosperity, and the prospect, the power of maintaining a self-sustained community. When that area they called Black Wall Street in Tulsa was bombed, crowds watched. They called it Negro barbecue. I have to do this. I got to start our discussion this way every time with all this violent imagery and all these sad and horrifying facts to give you some context, not just to teach and honor our history like I do every day. I got to do this because so many people believe that I just woke up one day and decided from a paradigm of vengeance and hate that I'm going to take this stand. It was love. Love for those entrepreneurs, for those torch towns, for the history they created and we so readily dismissed, for those freedom fighters and everyday revolutionaries that fuel my passion for and commitment to Black businesses and neighborhoods now. So let's include them and their families and their communities and the terrorism and discrimination they endured in the picture of racism that so many ascribe to me and my friends at the Missing Piece as we try our best to proactively support Black businesses now. I want you to think of them. Bring them into this pretty New Orleans day and this beautiful institution, because I think of them often. Because every abandoned storefront or lot that I passed on the way here, every boarded up business on the west side of Chicago is an affront to them. Each time we dismiss every business owner from our community because of a bad experience we had with one that we engaged years ago, we dishonor them. Those brave men who were hanged for trying to keep a store. And each time we don't even try to seek out someone from the community, and we blindly throw our money at these designers and brands and retailers and franchisers that do not have and do not even consider having Black-owned suppliers who are owned by individuals who would laugh at the thought of sponsoring a program like this or to bank with Liberty. Each time you disregard the gem you have right here in Liberty Bank, my bank, I'm in Chicago. I have an account here and most of you don't. Each time you do that, we forget them. So for one night, while Maggie Anderson is here, I do hope that you remember them. And after I leave, I hope you think about them some more. Next time you think it's too hard to look a little harder or drive a little farther or pay a little more to support the outstanding businesses and professionals we do still have. Most of us have forgotten about them. We've forgotten about our history, forgotten that our even noble, revered, beloved Dr. King was fighting for us to be conscious consumers the way the Missing Piece is doing now. Dr. King wasn't just fighting for basic human rights, the right to drink water where we want, the right to eat where we want. He died for us to spend and build where we want to. He died urging us to use our buying power to make community power. King was fighting for Black businesses, I said it, not just the right to shop at everyone else's. Now here's a quote from him, the one that you won't hear, thank you, on the radio or quoted on the tributes on his birthday. The one that so conveniently gets left out of the history books. In a public address, Dr. Martin Luther King said, "We've got to strengthen Black institutions." There's more, but I'm going to stop here for 1 second. Where's my good friend Raven? Raven, do me a favor. What's your most famous Dr. King quote? What's the one? I have a dream. Okay. This is what I want you to do for me. Next time you hear someone say that quote to you, Dr. King said, "I have a dream," I want you to say, and he also said, "We've got to strengthen Black institutions." You got that? You gonna do that for me, Raven? Say it for me. Thank you. Say it for me, Sugar. Now say it one more time like Dr. King would have said it.
I have a dream.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll get you there. By the time I'm done with this lecture, you'll be ready to say it better than that. But the point is, Dr. King said that. And then he said, I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money into Tri-State Bank. We want to have a bank-in movement in Memphis. We're just telling you to follow what we're doing. Put your money there. You have 6 or 7 black insurance companies in Memphis. Take out your insurance there. We want to have an insurance in. He said that. Dr. King said that. Now, 2 things I want to really sink in. Number 1, he said this in Memphis. You all know that that's where he was assassinated. He said this the day before he was killed. He said that, they killed him. Number 2, he referenced 6 or 7 insurance companies in Memphis. Again, that was 1968. You know we might have 1 African-American insurance company now in the whole country. I know we have brokers. I'm talking about insurers that you pay policy premiums to. 1, we had over 150 years ago. I don't know if you understood what I just said. He died telling us to support these businesses so that we can build up our institutions like Dillard, and we didn't. Now they're gone, and yes, our banks are dying off too. Those banks and insurance companies were the backbone of the black community, like North Carolina Mutual, Mechanics and Farmers Bank, and the legendary and now defunct Black Wall Street in Durham. They were built on those banks and insurance companies, and now those banks and insurance companies don't exist. The bank Jackie Robinson helped build so that black families can get mortgages and black entrepreneurs can get business loans. Freedom National Bank is gone. So we celebrate Jackie, we celebrate 42, we celebrate Dr. King every year. We watch the movies and we buy the t-shirts, we cry, we pray, but the banks that they built are gone. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, how does that make you feel? Do you wonder, like I do, what could have happened had those businesses grown? How those communities would have prospered? How Detroit would look now? All that just so that you, my students, could have the opportunity to be business owners and business leaders, not just workers and loyal customers. They went through all of that. King asked us to do that so that you could own businesses, create jobs, and contribute more to our legacy and heritage as a people, to this country, more than our money and our music. Young people, you have to start setting your sights on taking a real stand. And it can't just be about getting good jobs at big corporations like Walgreens and Johnson & Johnson and Kraft and General Motors. These corporate giants would die tomorrow without black money and talent. They would. So is President Kimbrough just preparing you to work at and buy from these big companies, or are you getting ready to continue what your beautiful, bold, brilliant ancestors started? What your ancestors were killed creating for you. We've been here 400 years. Does it bother you that none of those companies you and your family support every day are black owned? That when you consider the chance to contribute your gifts and smarts to the growth of a great American business, that you know for sure that it will never be owned by another wonderfully brilliant black family like yours? Is it supposed to be that way? Will you think about that when you ponder what you're going to do with the education and experience you get here? Why can't you be the next Lowe's or Wendy's or Auntie Anne's or Tyson Chicken, the next Google? Why aren't you opening up the printing shops and the pet stores and the party supply stores and the wine shops and the auto supply and the computer repair shops? I'm sorry, I love you and I cherish you, but I got to give it to you straight. As black students, you don't have the luxury that I had when I was a black student. You don't have the right to do what folks in my generation have done. You see, my generation, we developed this dangerous sense of gratification and entitlement. Like it was all about us, all the marching and hanging and getting burnt up, raped, jailed, and killed. So all I gotta do now, all I gotta do is live well and buy nice things. Before the empowerment experiment, I was one of those people. And then fortunately, God gave me a moment. And it was in that time that I learned I just don't have the luxury of giving up on my people or giving in to the status quo. I just don't have the right anymore to live an empty and easy life. And that was the moment I got the call when the doctors told me that my mother had pancreatic cancer and she was given a month to live. And as I sat in the hospital bed with my best friend, my mother, the most important person in my life, she told me that my experiment, the idea that I had tossed around for years before I had the courage to do it, my little idea to live off black businesses every day for a year, she said that this was the most important thing I could ever do. I didn't want to. I wanted to spend every second I could with her. Besides, it wasn't going to make a difference. And then Mima told me that if I had the gall to ask her and expect her to fight pancreatic cancer, which according to all the statistics we all know would be an impossible battle, she was well within her right to insist that I do my experiment, even though the odds were stacked against us. We have Dr. Kimbrough teaching you and anyone who will listen about our history and our businesses and the greatness they enabled. We have our Stay Local. Is Dana here? Dana! We have Stay Local, headed up by my sister from another mister, Dana Inez, who does so much for local black businesses here in New Orleans, so much. So I want us to clap for Miss Dana Inez. When I came here a couple of years ago to speak at National Urban League, it was Dana who made sure that I was able to support local black businesses while I was here. When I went to the Community Beck Center, and when I went to that awesome Jerk's chicken spot, tell me the name of it so all these people can go. Mother Nature. It was Cocoa Hut? Yes. That's sort of Mother Nature. I just remember the woman who cooked for me. So we all need to go back to Cocoa Hut. I wish I had more time to get some before I went home. But Dana has sacrificed so much that New Orleans can have. Our revived, locally owned grocery store, Circle Foods. Are my owners here tonight? Are they here, Dana? Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Please let's clap. Okay. Please let's clap for Circle Foods, your new grocery store. So again, I'm just trying to bring you examples of the wonderful institutions and organizations we have. We have Stay Local, we have Dillard, we have Circle Foods, we have wonderful government programs like the MBDA. We have these great institutions, but what are the people doing? What are you doing in your everyday life to make sure that your community is economically empowered? It's quiet now, and that's my point. We have great institutions, we got groups, we got programs, but we're not doing anything. What are we doing? What can Dana do for Circle Foods and for the other black businesses she supports if we are not going to support the fantastic businesses and Stay Local? What does it matter that New York Life, you didn't know this, has 1,100 black agents, 1,100 black agents, more than any other insurance company of the big insurance company? What will it matter that McDonald's has 6 owners here in the New Orleans area? One of them is here tonight. Please clap for my good friend Jamar Thrower. What does it matter that McDonald's and New York Life are doing these great things with our businesses if we are not supporting these businesses? Now I have you thinking, and now I hope that you will start to support these businesses too. The bottom line is I wanted my girls to know that not only can they buy from Sears, because that was the 50s and 60s, or work at Sears, we got better there, we fought for that. My children need to know that they can own Sears. So maybe it's time that we fight for that too. I hope you're still with me. I hope you're down with that fight. I hope I'm not moving too fast and furious for my new friends at Dillard this Tuesday evening. Because I dream of an America where all kinds of people are shopping at a retailer or a grocer started by a black family, seeing and buying our products too at the mass retailers, all kinds of people supporting our franchisees, our agents, depending on our industries and professionals, banking with us, staying at our hotels like we do everyone else. I dream of an America where it's not a ridiculous notion to a black child like someone like him can own a hotel chain or a drugstore, or the toaster his mama buys from Walmart was possibly made by a black family company. That some of the revenues from that big corporation his mom works for might be deposited in a black bank and not always the other way around. An America where the black neighborhood is not the only place where every ethnic group or mainstream firm can set up shop and achieve the American dream. An America where maybe there's some reciprocity for that. An America where the word corporate does not ring absolutely automatically antonymous to the word black owned. So we can't give up on that America. They didn't give up. They said, we're America too. Now you say it. We're America too. And every time they said it, America was made better. I want you to think about it like this. This is one of the things that Barack told me when he was my professor, when he taught me con law. Professor Obama taught me this. Think about it. Every major tenet of our democracy, our legal system, our Constitution, the right to a fair trial, the right to vote, free speech, labor rights, all of that came out of the African American struggle. He taught me that. Think about that. We did so much. We created so much, contributed so much to this wonderful country, but now we're at the bottom. We gave it all away. You know what that's like? Let me tell you what that's like. That's like courting somebody for weeks. I hope you guys still know what courting means, young men. Courting, flowers, letters, little dates, phone calls. But doing all that for weeks, taking her out, sending her flowers, I hope y'all still do that, and then finally you get to take her to the big dance. Y'all still have big dances? Big dances? Okay. But you get to take her to the big dance. All people know what I'm talking about. And then you get there and it's everything you dreamed of. She's beautiful, she's with you, it's a dream come true. And then you go get her something to drink, and then she runs off and dances with somebody else and leaves you hanging. You know what? That actually reminds me of this young brother named Chad. I did this very same thing to him. I need to find that boy and apologize. But let me get back to the point. I don't want you to get that far in demonstrating your greatness and then let it all go. We have to show the world that our greatness is not some historic and fossilized and ancient notion. I want you to think about my friend Jordan. I met this precious little girl during that year. I wouldn't have met Jordan or gone anywhere near Bronzeville, the South Side community where she lived, had it not been for our famous pledge. Bronzeville is pretty dilapidated, lots of crime and drugs. Still, Jordan, our young Jordan, 7 years old, dreamt of opening a children's clothing store in her neighborhood. And she did, with her mother and her grandmother and her grandfather's life savings. The store was called Jordan's Closets. It wasn't a children's place, the national chain where I used to buy my clothes before the experiment. Didn't have as much selection as you would find at Sears or Kmart, yet it was the most beautiful children's clothing store I'd ever seen. On Saturdays, Jordan's mom would host tea parties for little girls in the community. And on Sundays, Jordan's grandma would host etiquette classes and a charm school. And sometimes we go there not just to shop, but to visit, because Jordan, who was 7 then, was like a big sister to my little girls who were 3 and 4. Jordan's Closet was a wonderful place for me to spend my money. I can't think of a better way to show my love for my community. Jordan's Closets is gone. The business, the tea parties, the family, the hope, the revenue, the taxes for the local school system, the increased property value for that block, the hope that other businesses would occupy nearby storefronts and ward off drug and gang activity, all that's gone. Destroyed, deemed, in an abandoned space. And this happens every day in black communities like Bronzeville all the time. And we can tell our little Princess Jordan all day long, believe in yourself, work hard, you can be whatever you want, blah, blah. But then she looks outside or on TV and everything tells her different. We've got to show Jordan, not just tell her. I tried to show her, show my own girls the unity, the beauty, and the businesses that used to define her community. I lived off black businesses amidst death threats, a dying mother, and a detached and disconnected community for the same reason that Rosa Parks sat there, in the front, resolute, refusing to pay her money to an institution that did not value her. For the same reason that Medgar Evers led those boycotts of segregated Mississippi businesses, for the same reason that Reverend King stood there in defense of those sanitation workers, certain his assassination was imminent, and still told the community to put their money into community banks like Liberty Bank. Beverly, I don't know what to tell Jordan anymore. I don't know what to tell my own daughters. I hate having to tell them like you got to tell them, that we used to be able to go to the corner for ice cream and candy and be welcomed by a local business owner who looked like us and looked out for us. I got to tell my own daughter that she can own a clothing store. Why would I tell her that when the one I took her to, the perfect place I took her to, shut down in less than a year? So why would I tell her that? Why would I tell her that, Dana? Why would I tell her that, Jamar? Why would I tell her that, Dr. Kimbrough? And don't come and tell me because of Dr. King and because of Harriet. That's not right. I'm tired of that. I'm not going to keep telling these kids, our most precious, to look backward or look in a book for inspiration. I hope that that's not why you brought me here today. Your inspiration should come from the same place that mine did. Mine came from Nzinga, the owner of our local bookstore, from Uncle James, my dry cleaner, who just after being around for 4 years has hired an orphan boy named DeAndre. DeAndre now babysits my kids. His dad was killed in jail and his mom died of an overdose. DeAndre was lost, but then he got a job at Uncle James Dry Cleaners, and now DeAndre has hope. So I lovingly drive those 3 miles out of my way twice a week to support DeAndre, and Uncle James at their dry cleaner. That's where my inspiration comes from. From Tracy, who owned the wine shop. From my partner, Eugene Mitchell, who's another bougie corporate revolutionary like me, a talented tenter like me. But because of Eugene, we have those 1,100 black financial professionals who now have businesses with New York Life. New York Life has all those businesses now because we have, in the empowerment experiment, more corporate revolutionaries doing what they can to make sure their companies support our businesses. So please, please, this is where your inspiration should be coming from. Now think about what Dr. Anderson is trying to tell you tonight. Think about those lynched business owners, those burned businesses. Remember them, why King died. Remember what he said. Then commit yourself to that dream that he had. Commit yourself to Jordan. Then be inspired to fulfill that duty. Be inspired by your businesses like I am by mine. Be inspired by Mr. Thrower, the owner of your local McDonald's. Be inspired by Loretta, who I met today, of Loretta's Praline Shop. Fantastic products, 35 years around. They should be your inspiration. Yes, Douglas, Medgar, Sojourner, they should inspire you. But these business owners who came out here tonight to be with you, they are right here in front of you. They should be your they should be your inspiration too. Beverly McKenna, publisher of the Tribune, she should be your inspiration. You practically at the finish line, but I don't want you to cross it and leave Jordan behind and leave King's dream behind. So what are you going to do for Jordan? Because who's going to care about her, the little Bronzeville girl who wants to open a dress shop? Who's going to care about her besides Dana, besides me, besides Beverly? Who is going to give her something to believe in if it's not you? I'm showing her, but what will you show her? Show her the degree you get from this fine institution. That's great. She needs to see that. Show her how proud you are when you represent us in our civic groups and our sororities and fraternities in our schools. Show her that too. Show her that when our community is attacked, you're going to be there, you're going to tweet about it, you're going to show up at the rally, you got to do that. Show her that you vote, inspire her, show her all that. Show Jordan how brilliant we still are, how united we still are. Show her that account that you're going to start tomorrow at Liberty Bank. That's how you show Jordan that the black community is still alive. I speak across the country. I lecture at elite, predominantly white universities too, and trust fund kids who have never been in a black neighborhood or had dinner with a black person show up to protest me. And then they come up to me afterwards with tears in their eyes, begging for forgiveness and a lift to the black businesses. And that's good. I had dinner a few weeks back with a supplier diversity officer from Cigna, big old Cigna Healthcare, and she set up a meeting with me and the president of the company to help me fight for more businesses spending with black firms at Cigna. The president said to me, I just never saw things that way. For the first time, some of them see the direct correlation between the lack of black businesses and high black unemployment. A few months ago when some job numbers came out at CNN, and CNN was pointing out how black unemployment was 3 times that of whites, and they were ready to close the conversation there like that makes any sense. Suzanne Malveaux had me on the show to give my reaction to black unemployment numbers. Y'all know me, I didn't care. I was revved and ready to go off on that show and say, CNN, I'll tell you why black unemployment is so high, because no one's supporting black businesses, the corporations or the consumers. As soon as we start supporting black businesses, then black unemployment will go down. That's tell the whole truth, CNN. Before I even said a word, before I was able to say anything, Suzanne Malveaux introduced me, and she thanked me for my profound experiment and for teaching America a lesson about where our money goes and what it can do. So then I said, well, thank you, Suzanne, so much for having me on the show. And then when I finished not really going off, CNN, and this is the point of the story, CNN did have one of their big graphs, because you know CNN has the best graphs, and on that graph they showed the lack of support of black businesses. So the point is that CNN called me on the show to talk about black unemployment, but by the time I was finished with them, we were talking about black businesses. So that's the point. Even Fox News, after that interview, admitted that we need to fight for equality for black businesses. Last April, PBS NewsHour, they came to my house, we did a big piece on the book, and after that story, PBS actually declared black businesses are a rarity in America, even in black neighborhoods. And their white economists called the growth of local black businesses in Chicago the Anderson effect. The Anderson effect. I'm Anderson, by the way. So So I'm telling you this not to brag. I'm telling you this just to show you that somebody's hype about this, that America is possibly ready, and I hope you are too. In the 1930s, grocery stores, I'm trying to teach y'all something tonight, were considered the largest category of black-owned businesses. We had 6,400 grocery stores. At the beginning of the 21st century, Northwestern says that there were probably about 20 black-owned grocery stores in the United States. Now our researchers at Northwestern University bring that number down even lower, probably 11 full-service groceries in the United States of America owned by blacks. There are 48 Hispanic-owned grocery chains with 10 to 100 units. Some have over 100 units. Most of them have only popped up in the past 10 to 15 years. Who's shopping at those stores? Who enabled that growth, whose products are on the shelves, whose music is blaring, who's getting jobs at those stores, and whose kids are getting sent to college off that money? Hispanic consumers, Hispanic businesses, Hispanic employees, Hispanic children, and nothing is wrong with that. That's the way it should be. Good for them. Orale, lucha, and we can do the same. And if you don't believe me, I hope you believe Kellogg. Kellogg did a famous experiment based on my year. And they proved that 3% of our money goes back into the black community. Out of our $1 trillion, 97% of that money goes who knows where. And through some regression analysis and modeling, Kellogg also proved that if black households with $75,000 HHI or more, please remember these numbers. If black middle-class households were to increase that number from 3% to 10%, so don't tell me there's no hope, 3% to 10%, we could create 1 million black jobs. 1 million jobs. 1 million jobs, the money we already spend, businesses we already have. And this is when we spend it directly with Loretta's or when we spend it indirectly by going to Jamar's McDonald's. So if you won't do it for those slain entrepreneurs and the freedom fighters, if you don't think it's worth it to recreate our greatness, if you won't do it for poor Jordan and other kids who have lost hope, if you're not on fire now about the chance to create 1 million jobs by spending just a little bit more money in our community, maybe you'll do it just to prove all those out there who disrespect and deny and dismiss us wrong. Irvin J. Botner, CEO of Revlon, when asked about competition from black-owned firms in the black hair care industry, quoted 1986 in Newsweek, and he said, in the next couple of years, black-owned businesses are going to disappear. They'll all be sold to white companies. And he was right. It felt racist, it hurts like racism does, and I'm sure racists like Botner enjoy the way it all played out, but it's no one's fault but our own. It's the 6 hours. We can't be mad at him because black people were so desperate to feel included that they abandoned our perfectly wonderful black beauty products companies because we saw some commercials with adorable black families dancing around to soul music in the background. Magic Shade, Dark and Lovely, Dark and Natural, Motions, Roots of Nature, Let's Jam, Spoken Waves, Carefree Curls, all those brands, all the brands that only black people buy every day are owned by L'Oreal, company based out of France. All that money goes who knows where. I know where it ain't at. It ain't in Gary, it ain't in Oakland, it ain't in Baltimore, and it certainly ain't in New Orleans. And L'Oreal is making a bunch of commercials with our beautiful black people in them, putting our beautiful black kids on the boxes, but guess what? L'Oreal is not doing business with black businesses. No black suppliers, just black buyers. Billions going to L'Oreal. They just included supplier diversity in their mission statement. How is that okay? All those brands, all those billions, all those years, and no black businesses contributing anything to that supply chain. How is that okay? And you know what I say to that? I can't get mad at Botner. I can't get mad at L'Oreal. I say shame on us. Is the black community cleaner and safer because L'Oreal put some black people on the boxes? Is unemployment down now? Local school systems better funded because they show happy black families in the commercials? Are black people prospering now because Queen Latifah and Halle Berry are cover girls? Are you thinking about this now? Are you at least thinking about this now? Think about it, and then do what I do. Do your research like I do. Be conscious of where your money is going and see what it can do. Professor Maggie did some research and learned that over 60% of Hennessy's sales come from just a part of the black community, young people. Let me back up. I'm sure none of you at Dillard even know what Hennessy is. President Kimbrough, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, back this up with some factual data and give you some data reference, but Hennessy is a cognac. It's enjoyed by many young black people, not any of you black people, I'm sure, but again, I bring it up to give you some more data. 60% of Hennessy's revenues, 60% of Hennessy's U.S. revenues come from young black people. Wall Street Journal puts that estimate to closer to 80%. So with their company wholly dependent on this community to survive, they don't even have a supplier diversity program. They don't got the mission statement, they don't got the fake handshake on the website, they don't have any of that. They just take our money and run every day, and we keep that business alive. They might donate to a couple of black groups, they throw a couple of parties at National Urban League Conference, and that's nice, I hear. But they're not doing business with us. That's called partying with us. With that kind of money, there should be Hennessy hospitals in Harlem. There should be new chemistry labs at every HBCU. Hennessy should have funded the new Dillard Entrepreneurship Center, and I should be teaching at it. Seriously though, 60 to 80% of its revenues, Hennessy should have huge accounts at several black banks. There should be at least a dozen black Hennessy distributors and significant advertising in black-owned media. How many of those Hennessy billions you getting, Beverly? How many you getting? Thank you. Now, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Am I crazy for asking this? Am I unreasonable? Am I a radical now? Because that's what they call me. I'm asking too much when I ask you to buy Luster's, when I ask you to think about Hennessy. Too much to ask you to support a great family company like Luster's that helped bail Dr. King out of jail. Too much to ask you when I ask you to help me make Mr. Botner wrong. Let's make him wrong. Let's correct Mr. Botner. Let's unite to make Mr. Botner rule the day that he ever said black businesses can't last, that black businesses can't make it, and black people don't care about business or economics. You know how you do that? Buy Luster's, buy Brown Brothers, or any of the 5 or 6 remaining black family brands you see out of the 80 on the ethnic hair care aisle. Can you do that? Can you do that little thing for me, or is Botner still right? Now that you know more, are the 6 hours still going to tell the whole story about us? Are the statistics just telling the truth about black people, even the ones in this room? No, they can't be right. Because I did that year to prove them wrong. I did it mostly to show you how great we were and how great we can be again. To show you why your hope and faith are still worth having, your education worth attaining, these presentations worth attending, your people worth defending, and your dreams worth chasing. I want you to know that you are destined to be business owners, not just corporate cogs. You are great now because Jamar is here and McDonald's is here now, because Circle Foods is here now, because Liberty Bank is here now. That's why you are great now. So don't give up on your people. Don't give in to this tough situation you face in the community. You're going to get tired. You're going to want to give up. And I'm saying this to my business owners. You're going to get tired. You're going to want to give up. Please, please don't give up on us. And I promise you that we won't give up on you. So I'm asking you, students, do you see? Do you see what you have with the businesses that are here tonight, with the businesses that you ignore every day? I hope you see. Yes, you are black. Admit it, you're black. And because you have been blessed with this blackness, you have some great, fantastic opportunities in your life being at Dillard. You have some powerful knowledge. You are different, you are special, we expect more, we demand more, and so does everyone else. And I'm asking you to be proud of the burden that that imposes upon you. Beat that burden. Boast that burden. Be blessed by that burden. Make it your beautiful black burden, your awesome black blessed burden, like I have made this movement mine. Like Dana has made growing New Orleans local black businesses hers. Like our wonderful Beverly McKenna has tried with her wonderful publication to show off what's beautiful about black New Orleans. These are their burdens, and they have taken on those beautiful black burdens. I just want you to see how real this is to me, and I'll close. I want you to imagine the anguish I felt when I had to tell my daughters no. And not because we couldn't afford something or because they didn't deserve it, but because we're defending a premise that they were too young to understand. That was our commitment to the empowerment experiment, and that's what love is. I did that because I love them, and because God loves me, he gave me the strength to see this through. And that's why I'm asking you the same thing. I'm doing this and I'm asking this of you because I love you, my babies, my little academic activists. I know you think I'm yelling at you and pushing you and guilting you. I'm not. Well, I am, but I'm doing it because I love you. I love you, and that's why I'm asking you to make some sacrifices and take on these challenges and see things differently. I want you to feel a little pain too. I want you to take a stand and try something even though the odds are against you, so that you too can come out stronger and smarter and better, and we can prove the world wrong. I love you so much that I trust you to make everything better. I trust that you want to do it now and that you will do it now. So I'm going to ask you, as I close out my brain-filled lecture, what are they going to say about us? Will they say that we continued where King and Parks left off? Will they say that we maximize the brilliance and ambition and creativity and determination in this room to make life better for all our people, make society better for all? Will we give them a chance to say that we did some of that, only to empower those whose power had slipped or been stolen away? I hope we can make them say that another revolution was born out of this gathering, that we believe in Dr. King's other dream to strengthen Black institution, that his spirit lives on because we, the participants of Dillard University's annual Brain Food President Speaker Series, took this event seriously. We had the same power that those Montgomery marchers had. Did you know that those Montgomery marchers, your elders, your ancestors, they marched for 385 days straight, just over a year. And they used their economic power in that boycott to fix their social problems. Those good people had killer dogs at their heels, death threats, thugs raping our women, menacing our kids. They were hanging and beating up our men. But not one of those marchers got back on the bus until they got the respect they deserved. Now I just need to know, are you marching? Or are you still on the bus, riding, settling, waiting, comfortable, but sitting in the back? Now, are you marching with me? Because I'm down here. I'm off the bus. I'm marching with your president. I'm marching with Jamar and with Beverly. And there's plenty of room down here for wonderful students like you. All you got to do is hop on in. We're marching down here. And we're waiting on you to call your moms and dads tonight and tell them about this nice lady who came to their school and yelled at you for not supporting Black businesses every day. I'm waiting on you to call Polo and ask them how many Black businesses do you have in your supply chain in exchange for those billions that you make off Black consumers. Because that's how you march with Maggie Anderson. Are you marching? Will you at least make sure that some of you and your friends subscribe to Black Papers? Will you take time out to sit with Dana, maybe once a month, so she can show you so many local Black-owned businesses here? Will you proudly and not begrudgingly open an account at Liberty? Will you do it? Make a day of it. Bring 5 of your friends to do it too. We at least try to find that Black-owned dry cleaner that you do have, instead of just running out to the closest one and proclaiming, like you actually did the research, that there are no Black-owned dry cleaners. For everyone from Diane Sawyer, Soledad O'Brien, C-SPAN, Jim Lehrer, PBS NewsHour, all of them are covering my tour, covering my speeches, but that don't mean a thing to me if I can't then tell them that the students of Dillard are willing to take this message on. So I don't know when you're going to feel your moment like I did. I hope that for some of you it's going to be tonight. I hope you felt something when I told you about those business owners who were lynched, when I gave you that data about some of the corporations that use our money now. I hope you feel something when you look at these business owners who came to see you tonight because they think that this might be the real thing, that maybe our community is ready to unite around economic empowerment. I'm pretty much done now, but let me tell you why this is so real to me. My mother never graduated from high school. She was just a Cuban farm girl. She never learned how to drive. She never used a microwave or clothes dryer. Mima hawked her wedding ring to come to this country with my father and my 2 big brothers, not a penny to their name. And she raised us in one of the roughest parts of Miami among drug dealers and prostitutes and managed to keep us out of trouble and make sure we got to college. Mima was an awesome woman who peeled shrimp and filleted fish and cleaned crabs for 12 hours a day in that smelly seafood processing factory 6 days a week. She was a brilliant woman who made sure that I never forgot that our being Cuban and speaking Spanish did not mean we were not black. She explained to me this, all it meant is that we just got dropped off a little earlier in the slave trade. My fantastic mother taught me that. She couldn't, since she hadn't finished high school, she couldn't help me with my spelling bees or my papers, but she taught me about Martí and Bautista, black revolutionaries in Cuba who fought for our freedom, for black people's freedom there. That woman made me do my year for you, and she's why I'm here today. And I remember that moment after learning that my amazing mother was going to die soon, wondering why my mother would say that this insane pledge would be the most important thing I'd ever do. All those educational and professional accolades, married good, had 2 perfect grandbabies, and why? Why would this pledge be more important than being with her? And then she said this because she always came up with one of those awesome one-liners whenever we challenged her wisdom. She said to me, "Mija," which means my daughter, "I'm going to go out fighting. Are you?" And throughout the journey, my mother was fighting. She lived way past that 1 month that the doctors gave her. Mima lived for 18 months with one of the worst cancers there is. Our black year was the last year of her life. And she took her last breath in my arms. My father was there, but he let me hold her so that she could give me her last bit of strength. I was blessed to have her, to hold her at the very end, and I know that was a blessing from God. All those days and nights, though, that I should have been with her, helping Papa take care of her through those really rough times when she needed me, her only daughter, to be there. But I wasn't. I was out there fighting for this when I should have been fighting for her. And so I asked Mima, did I waste the last year of your life fighting for something that can't be penetrated, is never going to change, and not because the man has his foot on our necks, but no matter how much I give to this, no matter how many studies we generate, no matter how much media attention we earn, our people just won't support each other again. And the larger community won't come to believe, like I do, that my community's promise and potential is not a foregone conclusion, and that we won't, because it's taboo, come together for economic empowerment as we have for political and human rights. I cry about that year. I cry thinking about how much we've lost culturally and economically. Kareem and that perfect grocery store you saw in that video closed. When you read about Kareem and take in now that a Colombian owner thrives in that same location on 47th Street in the south side of Chicago, all those beautiful businesses, all of those businesses you saw in that video and you'll read about in the book, they're all gone. Now I cry wondering, whether as smart as I am with all my fancy degrees, am I nothing but a fool for really believing that one of you can be the next Wendy's? That Circle Foods will be here when I come back, and that some of you may be working there. That's silly, isn't it? That's stupid, isn't it? But then I'll meet someone like Dr. Kimbrough, who could have had anyone come talk to you tonight, and I'll think about Jamar, who only met me last week and came out to support me tonight, and I'll think about Beverly, and I'll think about Dana, and I'll think about the missing piece, and I get a chance to meet fantastic students like you. And then I believe that maybe Mima sent you all to me, that maybe Mima didn't survive that long so that she could see me and make sure I did what I set out to do. Maybe God let her live that long so that I could see her. God blessed me by enabling me to watch her fight. God wanted me to see that fighting is not always about winning. The real triumph is in trying, is in doing something. Mima made me do that year because she was teaching me, and now I'm teaching you that we are nothing, regardless of how smart and successful we are, if we do not try to make things better, if we're not fighting with those smarts and successes. And Mima didn't say it like that. She would say it to me like this: lucha. And for those of you who don't know Spanish, lucha means to try, to fight. So I'm going to ask you one more thing, because I know I got to go. For all those local business owners we honor today, for Dr. King, for the thousands who were murdered to own businesses, for all of those New York Life agents and McDonald's owners who are out there trying to make it, and I tell people to support, for that dream-deferring Jordan, for my daughters and for all the daughters who still, even as they see me, consider me to be an exception to be dismissed, for the hope that this brain food mission is giving you tonight. And for my Mima, I hope that we could all say, lucha. Thank you. Thank you so much.